All right, guys, we have some picks to make here. Week 3, some big matchups. We got some SEC games to talk about. I think maybe just as many as last week, but certainly some consequential games when it's all said and done. Of course, we'll talk Mizzou and Abilene Christian here at the end as well. So, guys, some thoughts. Number 1, Georgia. We talked about them earlier. They are at South Carolina, better than 3-touchdown favorites in Columbia, South Carolina. 24.5 points. South Carolina, they look like a team that can at least go out there and compete. They hung around with Arkansas. Razorbacks were clearly the better team last weekend. But, Ben, I'll start with you. Can South Carolina whip up some of that enthusiasm and a great game day atmosphere and take down Goliath in week 3 of college football?
Well, I think that's a tall order for a South Carolina team that might be going places, but they're not riding an Elon Musk rocket ship just yet. And Georgia looks like, it doesn't care whether it's playing Samford or Oregon. They're gonna kind of treat everybody with the same just absolute domination. So I think Georgia's rolling here. Their offense is super locked in. Their defense looks as good as it did last year, despite losing all this talent to the league. And one thing about South Carolina, could Spencer Rattler lead them to a huge win? Perhaps, but he just hasn't looked as awesome as I think a lot of people hoped. He's been okay. He got sacked 6 times against Arkansas last week. The interceptions are a little bit of a risk, especially against a defense like this. So I don't think there's going to be too many stunning developments here.
Dave, some thoughts here?
Yeah, normally I would say, man, that's a lot of points on the road, but Georgia's offense has just become an absolute juggernaut. They're 10th in the nation in yards per play, yards per game. I think they're a top 5 in passing, which you don't normally think of Georgia as a great passing team, but Stetson Bennett is just lighting it up. South Carolina's defense I think they're the worst in the SEC against the run. So if Georgia has to, they'll just run the ball and move it any way they want. It is on the road. They're going to be up for that game. It's going to be a great atmosphere, but I don't think Georgia is going to be touched by anyone for a while.
All right, guys, that brings us to Abilene Christian and Mizzou. I don't think there's a line on this game. There may be as we get closer to game time against an FCS opponent in Abilene Christian. Dave, they are 2-0 on the year, so they've won a couple of games. How do we see this playing out in Columbia tomorrow?
They had a big comeback win against Prairie View A&M, so that's my intel on the on the Wildcats. Here's the most interesting thing about this game, and this took some research on my end. This is the second week in a row. This is unheard of. I'm calling it now. This is a record. It's the first time in Mizzou history, according to my research of about 5 minutes, that they've ever played a team on back-to-back weeks that not only had the same mascot, but the mascot had the same name. Willie the Wildcat is ACU's mascot. Last week, K-State, Willie the Wildcat. How crazy is that? Same. They almost look the same, except K-State's got the weird thing where he's got the human arms and the human legs. Willie from Abilene Christian has mascot arms, furry arms, however you want to say it. So it is a little bit different. That's how much I know about this team, and that their quarterback's name is Maverick, which is pretty cool. Good year for that. Very on brand for 2022. Their head coach coached with Keith Patterson, I believe his name is. I'm probably getting it wrong. Might be Kevin. He and Drink were on the same staff at Arkansas State for about 6 weeks, I want to say, and one of them and Patterson left. That being said, this game should not be competitive. You don't schedule these games for a good test. You schedule them for a win. Missouri historically has always beaten FCS teams, but they did have a couple close calls against Missouri State back in 2016, 2017. And then last year, SEMO put up like 300 rushing yards on Missouri. The game wasn't close, but the yardage was pretty alarming. So Missouri should not have trouble with this. I saw one line. You got to really look for FCS lines, and I saw one that had it about 33.5. That sounds about right, yeah. But I'm not sure ACU scores in this game. Their numbers offensively aren't great. I think Missouri's defense gets things going, and the offense will, kind of slowly but surely find its way back.
Ben?
I just would like to compliment Dave's thorough analysis there. That's
good.
really the only kind of coverage that you're going to get on this show and in the pages of the Post-Dispatch. That is some deep dive stuff. I feel prepared for the game. I don't know about you guys, and I would also like to congratulate Abilene Christian on having the better Wildcat mascot. The head with the human arms and legs is creepy. It's probably up there. I would say second worst Big 12 mascot. And first, of course, goes to that awful horse in Norman, which I guess will soon be joining the SEC. That thing's a total creep. But as far as the game, no theatrics, no suspense. Take care of business. Get Luther Burden 3 touchdowns so the transfer warriors can settle down and get to work trying to take a better product on the road to Auburn. Anything that suggests that they struggle or suggests that they can't just absolutely take care of business on Saturday is only going to add to the angst and malaise that is building after this Manhattan disaster. So you're not going to learn anything. We don't have to, we won't need to go crazy next week evaluating what we took away from this win, but it needs to be a win. It needs to be a large win. It needs to be over by halftime, and it needs to kind of stop the bleeding and turn the focus toward how Missouri will take a better product on the road when they go to the Plains.
I'm one of those transfer worry warts, Ben. I'll say this. Yeah, a close win is as good as a loss in a game like this. So you hope that Mizzou goes in there and takes care of business. Thing feels over by halftime. Everybody can relax, and then everybody can then start to engage their focus on next week, because that's a big one, really big one on the road at the Plains, down there on the Plains, I should say, at Auburn next Saturday. Fellas, I appreciate it. We'll look forward to the coverage in the pages of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com tomorrow. For Ben, Fred, for Dave, I'm Brendan saying so long for now. Mizzou football tomorrow morning starting at 9 a.m. here on the Big 550 KTRS.